Welcome to our 7th edition of Finance and Foundations with myself, Chris Brito, my partner in crime, Joseph Eden. Today, we are joined by the famous Channel 5 superstar, Colin Horton, from the mighty Project & Co. Colin, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Colin Horton. I am a valuation surveyor and have had a couple of failed attempts on TV.
We might get into that in a little while, but
I'm actually a valuation surveyor, and I think I'm quite good at it. But yeah,
I think you've done quite well on TV. I guess
not in surveyor.
Yeah.
Cheers, man.
No. He's pretty good. The team's pretty good. Can't knock it. No, they're good. Project are a superstar firm in the industry. We use them a lot with the right lenders, and I can't complain.
One thing that people know you for is LinkedIn.
yep.
What is your story like behind LinkedIn?
So
Apart from Channel 5.
So back at 2D, like I'm an insecure chap, and I love like dopamine hits and stuff. And you go back to like your MySpace days and all that jazz, and LinkedIn just started to get into kind of gain a bit of momentum back in about 10 years ago now. And I cut a really long story short. I went to this meeting with these two lovely guys from Savills, and I was hiring them in my old asset management days to represent us. I'd never met a posh person before in my life. So I turned out, and these both blokes were both lovely. Bear in mind, I am hiring them, so I'm in the power. But their accents just threw me. So like, I was just like,
for that shake.
like absolutely shaking. I was so nervous. I was so infuriating, so nervous. And I was like, I never ever want to feel like that ever again. So I got on LinkedIn and I set up this thing called Young Lease-Up Professionals, which was like a networking group. And I was just a young lad on there, and everyone else was quite old and stuffy, and and that was it. I just grew from LinkedIn from there. I just kept adding people, and I was just putting out relatively tongue-in-cheek marketing because I think in today's, or even back then, it was quite stifling, what people put out. And it just grew from there. And I just think I kind of pretty gathered what people like to see and what attracts attention. And I just hit the curve at the right time.
So just jumping on your point there about, you've worked out what people like to see from the marketing. We've been doing marketing now for about 14 months, a lot on social media, Instagram, LinkedIn as well. And we've been trying to mix it up all the time with, the content that we feel people want to see, the way deals have been structured, helpful education, different financing products that are available, funny content, goals that the business have achieved. From all the stuff that you've tried, and I've seen you try a lot because you posted every day for how long?
3 years.
3 years, which is pretty impressive. Have you worked out what people want to see? And is that businesses? Is that customers?
A great question. I worked out what entrepreneurs want to see.
Okay.
And generally salespeople want to see. I don't think I've quite mastered the career-minded middle management desires of what they want on LinkedIn. I get a lot of negativity thrown at me sometimes. People have never met me, they'll judge me, rightly or wrongly, But all I ever try and do is make people laugh and smile and just give a bit, if someone reads it and think, oh, actually that resonates with me, I've done my little bit. But the demographic of people who don't necessarily like what I put out, generally very similar.
You need that. I'm not saying you're pushing controversy, but like you need that little bit of a divide. The people that are championing you and the people that are...
it gets onto our point a bit later on, I think we're going to discuss, but as the specialist finance world has evolved over the last couple of years with more institutional funding in the market, it's all well and good getting on with the founders, but they're not necessarily the ones that are going to make decisions.
Absolutely.
So I've had to kind of take a step back, take advice on what type of content is going to appeal to heads of credit, underwriters, funding lines, etc. And I'll be honest, I don't think I truly know, maybe LinkedIn isn't even a platform for them. Are they even on LinkedIn? I don't know. And I think about it a lot more than as any sane man should probably think about it. And can't quite crack it.
Let me ask you a question.
Yep.
What do you think of Bridgemore Capital's marketing?
I think it's great. I think you guys, I think I remember we spoke about it about a year ago, like about the market and how you wanted to just give it a go. And like you were so good at it, and like obviously everyone loves you guys because you carry. I think what's great about you and your marketing is you are no different as you are in person as you are on your marketing.
Yeah.
Which I think is so important. But you have a laugh and you do the professional stuff. It's not boring. It's not walking around randomly stroking a table in your kitchen. You know, it's good stuff. And I think in what our business is, people want to work with people they like.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important. And I think that comes across.
I think we touch on that in every single podcast, don't we, about relationships?
Yeah, we tried to be authentic, but in the same way, you can't make everyone happy. And I think that's the thing that we've kind of settled for as well.
Yeah, same as you.
Because if you're trying to go for the big developers, some of the stuff that we put out might not be professional enough. So we're almost going for like just the small to medium developers that have just got a little bit about them as well. And you end up attracting that same energy, right? And it's kind of what you're doing. You're attracting
It's
that same energy.
There's a guy I call him my mentor, is now a friend, called Sean Simon, and runs one of the biggest agencies in London, commercial agency. I think I fancy him to a degree. I'm a very straight man, but I think I generally fancy him. But he once said, Cole, look, you're not going to appeal to all the banks, but you're going to appeal to a fuckload of other people, and you're going to make a lot of money doing so. Don't try to please everyone. Being a people pleaser, you want to please everyone.
Yeah.
But it's always stuck with me what he said that. And I think if you can just, any advice I give after doing it consistently for 3 years is, as much as I still don't do it now, it's just, don't try and please everyone, because it's not going to work, because you can't. But just lean into what makes you the most money. Who are your best clients? There's going to be loads of them out there that you haven't found yet, and they'll give you a very, very, very successful business.
Yeah.
Just trying to relate to people.
Like, do you want to be like, I mean, there's some, if you look at some of the more corporate firms, brokerages out there, do you want to be them? If that's what you want to be, then
It's not. We like being relatable, and we like to be able to come into work and be our same selves that we are outside of work. Obviously, a little bit more professional, a little bit more focused, of course, but I think being able to just be your true self and have your true personality shining through, I think you get more out of yourself.
Yeah.
Rather than pretending to be something you're not, which is draining.
I think you feel it in every. It's not just the marketing piece. Like when you're putting yourself, like you as a person, you put yourself out. You go to an event, you meet someone. 6 months later, they could be a client, or they could be working with you or for you. And if you're putting the wrong impression out, you're going to be attracting. If you're attracting corporate people, you're eventually going to have a corporate team. It's going to be well out of sync. Like we're quite particular on who we bring on, and a lot of people that we bring, between us, our conversations aren't like normal companies. We're like, oh, how would they act in this situation? How is it going to affect our culture, rather than how much money for them? Because it's more everything else, because it's important. It's like, it's you.
Yeah.
And then we attract similar clients like that. A lot of clients become mates.
Yeah.
That's not the intention, but it happens because you're all like singing from that same like moral
Point sheet, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree totally. So to get a little bit more serious, in the market at the moment, you guys have seen hundreds of projects, and we've seen, especially for the larger, medium-sized developers that are trying to find land, we're planning to start off new projects. What's the biggest difference you're seeing at the moment between developers who are making like a decent margin on their projects versus the ones who find themselves firefighting and end up in a really bad position where they're having to maybe do a development exit because they need longer time to sell the assets, and actually find themselves wasting 2 years, 3 years worth of their life of not making any money from a project?
Really good question. I mean, one of the consistent trends I do see is we do see a lot of these contractor turned developers that come into the market, convinced they can build something for X amount of money. Fundamentally, when it gets to valuation, that's not how valuers look at things. We have to look at it as if the bank's going to repossess it.
Yeah.
There's sometimes a lack of professionalism when it comes to submitting appraisals. That's a big thing for us. That crops up 9 out of 10 times at the moment.
So an appraisal that a contractor / developer provides to us, the broker, we then give to lender then gives to you. You're then looking at that appraisal. You're saying that in some cases it's just a mess.
They don't know. They don't know their costumes. I mean, there's some of these guys are asking for millions and millions of pounds, and they don't even know.
Yeah.
They don't even know what. They don't know what to me the finished scheme is, and that is proving tricky because I don't like to have those conversations with the lenders, with the brokers if I need to. I think also as well, like the sophisticated developers out there know what they're doing. They've got their product. They have a track record. Lenders, because it's so competitive now, want them and are sometimes willing to use their build costs more so than maybe a Joe Bloggs off the street. And there's also a lot of, I've watched a couple of Samuel Leeds or other training courses are available online and think I can be a property developer. They then bring in lots of investor funding, and I've done that myself, or I've get in investor funding, and you're already on the back foot because you've got people clambering at you, and I think we can all relate to that to a degree when you've got, I've got a JB at the moment with someone, and it's stressful, mate. They're not on the front line necessarily, so that's a big common thing that we're seeing, especially in bridging as well.
Yeah,
because I think people forget bridging is not necessarily, it's just designed to be a last minute speedy thing. It's a bridge.
Yeah,
it's a bridge to the end product.
Yeah,
and I think that's what sometimes people forget. But there is no right or wrong, and it is all very different. It's just everything's expensive. Bill costs have gone through the roof, and the lenders' scrutiny and governance has become much stricter.
Yeah, we've seen it recently where we've had a few development finance deals halfway through progression with certain lenders in the market, not to name any names at all. But because of market conditions, world economics or whatever, have decided just to drop deals and just finding any reason they can just to say no. Yeah. And they're getting that information from a valuation report, which might say, in that particular area, we feel there's a weakness in the rental demand or the sales, the ability to offload those assets quickly if they had to repossess. How do you feel like valuation reports? Because a lot of people will come to us and go, well, the valuer's killed the deal. How do you feel about when people say that and you get that from brokers and or direct customers as well?
I mean, again, I'll see it on the flip side. I've been investors had deals killed, and I F and I Jeff, and I hate them. They don't know what they're talking about, blah, blah, blah. But they're only working off evidence, and as valuers at the moment, it is hard out there because you have this mix of commerciality, because you want lenders to want to lend, you want them to think, oh, we can actually use these valuers to do deals. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, you've got to protect them. You can't risk their funds. Mm-hmm. And like I said earlier, the governance is becoming stronger and stronger, harder and harder for valuers and professional service providers, not just us, and lawyers. And yeah, we do have to kill deals because we don't want to get sued. I mean, my insurance alone is 250 grand a year. Mm-hmm. So that's before I make any money. I mean, that's before I do anything. I've got to pay $250,000 out. That's with zero claims. That's zero claim, 25 mil cover.
No values PI was high. I genuinely didn't know that much.
Yeah, and it's literally like, I think what a lot of people forget, applicants, heads of credit, underwriting, funding lines, if I get sued, my insurance will go up to £1 million for it. And that's my business out the window, and it's my life. That's my life. That's it. My family's livelihood. And that's what people seem to forget sometimes. So a valuer isn't going to risk something for the sake of a broker who, no disrespect to you guys, probably gets paid the most in the whole transaction out of probably more than that.
We don't get paid if the deal corrects.
Yeah. So there's a flip side. But I've done some recently, been like 50, 20 billion pound loans. And then some of the brokers get 2%.
Yeah.
That is a joke. My fee must be like 10 grand. But yeah, these guys are coming over, a couple $100,000 or whatever it may be, So killing deals isn't nice, but it is a necessary evil in the space at the moment. And if people do their due diligence correctly, no deal should be getting killed. They will just be getting valued correctly. And it all comes down to the brokers and the applicants doing not what I call like dreamer, appraisals, realistic.
We get clients coming to us all the time, whether it's maybe for a development deal. You mentioned it earlier on about just unrealistic build costs and GDVs. We get on development deals, we get it on HMOs as well, where we've got people saying, I can do a 8-bed HMO for 80 grand in the southeast. I mean, look, you can't. And we know that, and it's the broker's job to push back at that point and find out where they've got the build costs from and utilize the experience if we've done plenty of those type of deals in those areas and push back. It should get to the point of lender and valuer, the valuer receiving a build cost that's so out of where it needs to be. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree. Like we as a broker, we try to do like a a pre-appraisal before it hits a lender, and we see there's times where we go through tens and tens of projects for one client, just go, no, build cost is wrong, GDV is wrong, but we don't. It's hard to get it right. We've had a development deal going through recently, and the lender's turned around and gone, price per square foot's this. Actually, we think it's this because of BCIS, and
that should always be your fallback, by the way. So you should always cross BCIS because that's what everybody was using.
That's what I was going to touch on that. How accurate is BCIS?
It depends on the data set and where it is.
Because the averages seem to be, that's kind of where I was getting to. There's some projects in the southeast where we go, okay, it's ground up dev, £200 a square foot is kind of enough. And then we've had lenders say, no, it's not. And then like 200 quid a square foot plus contingency, 10% plus consultants. And then we've had conversations in different geographical patches, and it's been as high as like £300 a square foot.
Yeah, I mean, and if you look on BCIS, you get a range of figures. You get lower quartile, upper quartile, lowest, median, highest.
So who decides on what data point is used for the valuation?
It will be the valuers. I know there's so many data points. You know, we can be pretty specific down to location, property type, etc. But it all depends on the spread of data that's been supplied. You know, I done one the other day in Norfolk. I did do one my surveyors done one, and we were QCing it. For that exact type of property, there was only 4 data sets provided. So that's obviously not a great range of data. And I think it was something from like 50, I think it was something, it was a rehabilitation of a unit, but it was like 50 between 500 and 3.5, 4,000. There's a lot, massive range. But generally, you know, if you go down to Southend or Essex, there's the data set's a lot better. So there's a lot better quality of data.
Because there's so much data.
Yeah. And then again, judgment culture, you have to do what we think is right. I would generally say if you can work off, obviously the mean is obviously the best thing to do. That's the average. But anything above lower quartile is acceptable to a degree. But then you've got stuff like your profit on GDV, your profit on cost. You know, what would be adopting? When you see something at 10% profit on cost, I was like, mate, this isn't going to work. Like, why are you doing this project? What's wrong with you? You know.
Agreed. I mean, that's another thing, isn't it? We've had conversations of some lenders want you to use profit on GDV, some profit on costs. Because our fallback position is 15% profit on cost as a minimum for debt, 20% plus on equity. But we're seeing that smidge up a little bit. You say it doesn't take much for you to almost be at like 11 or 12. Who drives that decision?
In a dream world, mate, I'll be working on 20% profit on GDV. Because I've got 10% contingency. The finance costs have been supplied to us by the lender, so I don't have to guesstimate them. One thing we're seeing a lot of lenders think is that it's only going to cost me, it's only going to take me 12 months to build. But they haven't factored in potential 6 to 12 months disposal.
Yeah.
That's a big thing we're seeing missing a lot at the moment. Really? Yeah, you'd be surprised, man.
I find like a lot of lenders have driven that.
Yeah,
I always feel like a pushback on, we don't agree with your 6 months sale projections. We actually think you're going to need 9 in a secondary tier city. So I haven't really had a situation where I've been,
with the monitoring surveyor or value?
when the lenders accepted like the total term for the build and disposal or / refinance.
There are some lenders that you can get them to commit to it, but you know where it gets further down the line, it's going to fall to pieces anyway.
Yeah. And also, a lot of these guys, if they don't like the deal, you can quickly tell quite early on. And we'll often have chats with the credit team or the underwriting team. So how much do you like the deal?
Yeah.
Do you like the applicant? You know, obviously there's a yes and a no, you know, and they might love the applicant, but the scheme might be tight, but they know it's a gateway deal to a massive portfolio of development schemes that are coming through.
So on that, in your taking a bit of a sidestep, if you got a really clean presentation from a developer or broker, and you had like a lot of data in it, and you cross-referenced some bit, and it was kind of accurate, but the scheme was a little bit tight in some areas, what way would you sway?
Well, straight away, the clean presentation that I'm presented with gives me a bit more confidence in the scheme when it does come. Because if you look at some of the variables, you've got your profit on cost or profit on GDV. That's one of the variables you can. tinkle with tinker. Tinkle. I don't understand. That's where it gets started. Yeah. You build rate, so you can you do have a slight bit of flex in what build rate you adopt, and also in GDP. So they're the kind of the three main kind of flexes you've got. If you do have good confidence in the developer and they do have a track record, they can show you their track record, and in their pack, for want of a better phrase, that they've sent over, that they've got comparable evidence that's actually sold, not on the market, because on the market is absolutely bloody useless. Don't bother sending that to me. That is a last result. Then it will give the valuer, and that's not just us, that is across the board, that is with all valuers across the country, that will give them more confidence, and it's only going to help. It might not guarantee you're going to get a slightly better valuation at the end, but if it does come down to half empty, half full, it will give you a better chance.
That's interesting, because I think so many people, not to slag off contractor developers, but people that are on site and they're looking at like almost leveling themselves up, ready to do the first project. Sometimes the presentation isn't great, but their figures are bang on.
Yep.
Like they've already tendered out certain packages, and we look at it and go, they're a cracking bet. But then some lenders question.
It's all about perception.
Yeah, and organisation, and are they going to be good with building control, documentation, all that stuff? And I get, so it's almost like there's two equal sides to the coin, but I just wondered how you feel in the front end being the valuer, because it's, again, your PR risk is huge.
Perception was a motherfucker.
It is. It's the biggest thing, isn't it?
We always talk about it.
Yeah.
Even if you let stuff like Claude, for example, say, phenomenal tool now in the AI world. Like as brokers, I know you guys generally always put really nice appraisals in, but like if you put an appraisal on Excel, the developer generally has some form of branding for their scheme. It's work. It's always nice to see. Put that in, put the Excel in, and say, "Oh, maybe a pack."
Yeah.
Takes 5 minutes. You've got a beautiful pack. Out you go. Done. It's so simple now.
To speak lastly board in this market, to spend a little bit of time.
It helps. I mean, and also as well, from you broker side of things, this is what the applicant's providing me. And I'll actually spend some time on this deal.
Yeah.
Not waste my time with a chancer who's
It's not just that. It's also like we speak about it to our clients. It's our job to make sure we give the best possible representation of the client and their deal. So it's down to us to push back at that point and encourage them to produce something.
Because I'm all right. Some lenders have a panel of brokers that they will accept deals from. Is that a thing?
Yeah, not as much anymore. And I feel like that's changed. Like the specialist finance world has changed quite a lot.
Who would you say still does that?
I like one that does it, but
it's probably more specialist commercial term lenders that are a bit more like that. But I won't mention their name. There's a couple of family offices like 2 and a bit years ago. They just had a panel of 10 and a panel of 15. And then as their team's grown, they've just gone out to market. I think it might be their capital availability or something like that. Yeah, they're using.
I've been restricted this year from anyone.
Most people use the same funding lines.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's the other phase of funding lines. But just going back to like talking about data, because I've got to jump in on something.
Go.
Obviously, we do a lot of HMOs.
Oh no.
Silence.
Oh no.
And I think of recent, we've had a few situations where the HMO valuations have suddenly dropped in terms of the GDV outputs. Now, for our wonderful audience, it would be great to kind of reaffirm, one, the way in which rents are derived in terms of the monthly room rents, and then also how the yields derived. Would I be right in saying on the monthly room rents, you're going to be comparing against local HMOs of the same quality, and then the size of the rooms, whether it's a studio, kitchenette, ensuite, off-suite, blah, 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 that derives the average room rents, right?
Yep.
And then based on the new one coming to the market from the client, that's where you're going to apply a room rent for each of the rooms, depending on the sizes and quality.
Right.
Yield. Now, my understanding, and tell me if I'm wrong, is that when you do your research, you're looking for other HMO sales in the area, and you'll look at what they've been sold for and the rent that they were generating, which then obviously gives you the yield. So you find 6 or 7 comparables, which then gives you a range between the ones in that area, a range between 9 and 13%. And then you place the new HMO that's coming to market somewhere within that range. If there is a situation in like a area where there hasn't been any HMO sales, how do you derive the yield?
Oh, it's horrible.
That's the thing. Not many people sell HMOs, do they?
Well, this is it.
And that's
What the HMO market is actually generally best doing is transacting HMOs between themselves and generating some comparable evidence. Because at the moment, no one sells good, like you just said, no one.
Disclaimer, not that we'd ever encourage that.
No. Yeah, I know. Fundamentally, that's the same way comparable is going to come about at the moment. There are no comps.
So you could find a mate that's got the same HMO.
Saying to
Down here to say and just
Sell each other.
But then you've got two comps.
Yeah, sure.
And ultimately, like when we do our due diligence, yes, we'll go through it and I see it's been marketed and did it have a long enough marketing history. Obviously, don't do stuff off market. Everything would have to, but that. Yeah. And I think a lot of time with HMOs, as we all know, because we're from Essex, is a lot of time they trade in the grey. So these things don't trade on the open market. You know, we don't know what they transferred for. We won't see them. So they're never going to be anywhere. A lot of the good ones.
Yeah.
And as people are starting to look for kind of new HMO areas that are kind of outside of Article 4 and, you know, they're looking for new places to invest, certain areas get saturated, Article 4 comes in, it just doesn't necessarily work anymore. Those areas don't necessarily have the comps.
Yeah.
And then when you get to the panel managers, you got to be within 12 months, 1 mile. Sometimes there are no comps. Yeah. Also, you have to look back at the material change. You know, how much material change actually happened to that building. Is it quite easy to switch back into just to a normal house? Then ultimately your fallback will be, what's it worth as a house? You know, and you kind of work out the cost to do the HMO and work backwards.
Yep, understand.
But it's very hard. I do worry about HMOs to a degree. I think there was a huge drive to get the bridge. Exit, not so much thought about. So much, and it only takes 2 or 3 of the good term lenders out there to pull those products on the investment method, and then we're going to be stuck with a lot of people on investment methods, especially in places like Southend, for argument's sake.
Sure.
Where the house next door might be worth 450 as a house. You know, getting refied at 800 grand. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to think that might be a little bit sus. Not saying HMOs are great investment class. You know, the returns are great, but it does feel me sometimes with a little concern for people that are maybe too highly leveraged and not educated enough.
And going back to that point, and what would you say is the difference between a house that's had enough material change versus not? Because we've always kind of reverse engineered all our deals, and we always try and make sure that we can make sure there's enough exit lenders, not just one, but at least 2 or 3 that are going to lend on, say, a 6-bed all ensuite HMO. So it's got 6 rooms in it. Yeah, everyone's got an ensuite. Is that enough material change from your perspective to not be changed back to, or is it like a figure? This is like £1 million.
Because people ask that figure all the time. So many people go, oh, my mate Dave, he had a 5-bed HMO and got a commercial vow on it in so-and-so. And you're like, it's a risk.
Yeah.
Try it if you want.
I mean, I'll be honest with you.
And it's like, as you said, what is the figure? Is it 50 grand conversion cost? Is it, you know?
Well, you ain't getting any investment vows on 5 beds these days. No. Like, I mean.
But you'd say 6-bed, all ensuite HMO, that's enough to prevent homeowner market wanting to come to that property and have to spend 150 grand to turn it back into a normal residential home.
Correct.
Surely that's got to be.
Yeah. So ensuite to me is kind of that's the thing. It's the thing. I think like we do a lot in kind of North London on HMOs and stuff. A lot of them are just houses with just loads of people stacked in some fire doors. You know, and also ethically, you know, for about getting to, I don't know, I'm a high horse, like, for me, the quality of the accommodation is really important.
Yes.
Like really, really important. And the efficacy of the investor. You know, what are they going to put in there? Are they going to put working professionals in there? Great. Putting families in there on lowering, you've got 4 or 5 people in a 15 square meter room. Like for me, that doesn't sit right. And if I'm on inspection myself and I'm seeing that, then that, you know, I'm like, so what? No.
Yeah, it's not cool.
So it's not.
Yeah.
What I was going to say is what constitutes quality? Like, is it because some people think, oh, it's the quality of materials used in the kitchen, like, you know, quartz worktops and making it jazzy and nice, or is it more amenity space, like, you know, just in cinema rooms and gyms and stuff in some bigger.
I mean, amenities is a big thing.
Yeah.
I personally nowadays seriously need to spend £1,000 on a quartz worktop.
Yeah.
You know, the ergonomics, the functionality of the place is important. You know, the rooms themselves are usable to live in. It's not just a bed and a tiny cramped-in little shower. They work for people. It's not like a prison cell. Luckily, you know, it's generally the kind of the inner city or just outside the CBDs of the local towns where you've got those big old kind of Victorian houses. They're primed for HMOs. It's just when you see things that are big about HMOs, it shouldn't really be HMOs. Yeah, like, that's not great. But there is no definitive answer to that question. It's just, would I put a family member in there if that's what they needed? And that's kind of maybe how I'd look at it if I was doing a HMO.
The thing is, HMOs are now, I'm not saying they're cool, but they're not bed sits anymore. Like some young people prefer to live in HMOs in certain geographical patches because of the social aspects.
You're gay.
The social aspects or like cost if you're paying £1,000 for a room but you haven't got council tax and responsibilities and all that stuff.
But look, what you said's a good point, but I don't feel like we ever now get any clients that build HMOs and are targeting low profile tenants. Every single person that generally now comes into our business to want to create a new HMO is wanting to deliver the next strong quality product with enough good space. And it's an obvious reason why, because they're expecting from doing that to get 700 grand GDV on a 6-bed.
Well, I know you guys have got some phenomenal. I mean, you're known for having some of the best HMO investors as your clients in the space. Like you go on your socials, you can clearly see that. And some of them, I won't say certain clients, but some of them are really bloody good at it. And you can see people copy him.
Yeah.
And that is good. It's good to have people out there that are kind of influencing the sector like that.
Raises the bar a bit, doesn't it?
It does indeed, and I think standards do need to be good. It's just when you get people trying to jump on it and don't really know what they're doing and just seeing a quick money grab.
Yeah.
And they haven't got a thought out plan to get there.
They're just using buzzwords.
Yeah.
Social housing, HMO.
And the social housing thing is an interesting thing.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, this is the big hot topic at the moment in this valuation space about the over rent element of social housing.
Yeah, the contract circa years, 5-10 year contract.
What do you mean by the over rent? What do you mean by the over rent?
So I've got a personal one at the moment where we get about £1,400 a month for this. It's a respectable flat.
It's a strong quality product.
Yes, but yeah, £1,400 for this flat. Realistically, the rate's only about £900.
Really?
But it's a kind of council tenant per se.
It's a local authority funded.
And they're paying over the rent. So if the yield on that is I've got to stop swearing. The yield on that is superb. But when we're valuing sometimes, lenders don't necessarily, if they're trying to get an investment method valuation, we generally have to value at the market rent, not the over rent.
Okay,
so
that tenant.
There are some lenders that will take the lease,
but
I've literally doing one at the moment, and I just wouldn't want anyone to put all of their heart and soul and money onto bank on the fact that they're going to get the investment method banked on one of these social housing leases, because they won't.
With the social housing leases,
I like them personally. Obviously, I have.
Do you feel the property needs to be C2 or sui gen? What's the use class that? So I think there's a bit of confusion around this.
Yeah, I've got a C2 one at the moment. They cannot get planning conversion to go to C3. So it's got a one, I can never say it's sui generis.
Yeah. Sui gen will do.
But it does impact the valuation, especially if they're asking for bricks and mortar, which a lot of lenders are now.
That's where I'm getting to. So like, how has converting to C2, because you want to then bring in that social housing contract because it's over and above the normal rental and it's guaranteed for 5 years, albeit should you not also check the assets and net funds in that care provider's account, because if they go bust, that contract means nothing. We can come on to that point in a minute. But if it's converted to a C2 use class, how have you found people you've come into contact with, or even yourself, trying to find the right term lender? And does that term lender provide an investment valuation? Because surely from a term lender's perspective, if they had to repossess, they now can't get an owner-occupier normal residential tenant in it.
Yeah, it's proving difficult, mate. I've literally had one today, and C2, he had a valuation previously as a trading val, because he originally had it as an Airbnb. It's across like 7 or 8 units. He decided he wanted to go down into the care route. But they don't do it's listed, they don't give him service accommodation. And it's proven very difficult because the lenders, they still want the fallback of the underlying bricks and mortar value. And the trading value is almost double the bricks and mortar value. And that is alarm bells.
For lender talk?
Well, I think they're removing that, yeah.
Because if you had to repossess, what's the lender's process to be able to dispose of that asset? They've then got to change the planning.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the tough thing.
And you got the contract, and there's a contract in place as well with the social local housing provider.
So and then they're also being seen to potentially have to kick out vulnerable tenants.
Not great PR.
Which then is bad PR,
Which is
ethical.
what lenders hate the idea.
Rentals reform bill, absolutely nightmare. So it's
not open a can of worms on C2.
No, it's not almost sad doom and gloom, but I think there's a great opportunity there for people. I think people have just jumped on the care bandwagon
And the money.
Yeah, and the money. I mean, I like care homes. You know, that's another thing for sure. But I love care homes. But certain things are getting classed as care, and I'm very skeptical sometimes of what that care actually is. And is it just you're just housing any old person in there and get the contract? And like you say, no one checks the A&L a lot of the time with these.
The problem is
It's almost the
you've got
buzzword, isn't it?
people and you've got agents out there that are going, give me your house. I'll give you a contract for 20 years. We'll guarantee your rent twice the normal residential rental opportunity that's there. And also go and get it refinanced once in play because we're going to get you an investment valuation. So now people are going, well, if HMO is becoming more difficult and valuation become more difficult, I need to pivot and move into a different space. Or this one's going to give me a shit ton of rent, plus I can get an investment value on it. But I think a lot of people get missold the dream on it. You not agree with that?
It's a new buzzword of like when service accommodation, SA, I'm going to do this. It sounds cool. But yeah, there's so many more like logistical issues below it. Like we have this, like for anyone that doesn't know, C3 being residential use class, lenders would always say, oh, if you get sui generis use class, then we're happy with commercial vows, etc. But if you go from C3 to C4, non-Article 4, you do under PD, it's easy to change back. So then we thought if people go to C2, which is a full planning permission, you're always going to get an investment valuation on that. But is there some nervousness around that because of what you were saying about essentially if that care provider goes pop, there's potentially nowhere to go and you may have just got an inflated rent. Like, is that the underlying issue?
100%. And I think you should always work off what would be the market rent
As a residential.
on the bricks and mortar side of things, even if you can't go back to C3. Unfortunately, it is a grey area and it's ever evolving.
But then does it work then if you're converting to a C2, you then restricted yourself of lenders, you then might only have one lender, two lenders can be able to lend to you, you then got a higher interest rate. So is all that hassle worth it to do for a little bit more rental, which is actually then getting squeezed by the inflated monthly mortgage payment versus just having as normal rent?
I think it's economy of scale. You got to be doing bigger units. I think you got to be looking at least 10 units plus to make it happen.
Not battling in it, basically.
Yeah, because we're looking at it from a very binary lending point of view. Yeah, but fundamentally these things are cash machines. Anything care homes. If I get a windfall, I'm going straight into care homes because you can make a difference to people. People are always going to get old, and there is a huge finite demand.
Yeah. Local authority function to get.
Fund it.
But you heard a minute ago when you said about kind of volume of rooms. I've done some care home funding myself, and I've found that a lot of lenders don't like anything that's under 20 rooms.
Yeah.
Because anything under 20 rooms, one room vacant, impacts the economy of scale so much more.
I think because there is so much money in it, there's also been an influx of providers with nothing behind them. Like they've got no balance sheet, then they're going to go pop as soon as some funding changes. Like the NHS strategy was quite a big one for a few of our clients in Southend, Basildon. And we have clients who had tens and tens and tens of rooms on this NHS kind of setup, and then it just got changed. And that was it. Then they have to pivot into something else.
Yeah.
Because the providers.
Tom. Yeah, there's no. Then it's not necessarily service accommodation for special housing, but the ones in like the corporate side of things, where they're next to massive corporate workplaces, like in Reading, like Microsoft or whatever like that. Those contracts are pretty nice. Where you've got the big blue chip companies paying you X amount of money for 3 or 4 years, but we don't see enough. I'd like to see more of that these days, but that's a lot safer. But yeah, you're right. There's so many caveats. That's why you need good brokers to guide you through it and not just. It's definitely something you could probably do another video on, I think, for your clients.
So deep dive. On years and or leases.
Yeah. Nice. Because anyone can form a lease.
Yeah, exactly.
Best boy of mine gets on to sign it and say, I've got this contract with Joey and Homes Limited and it's, I mean, it's this, unfortunately, there's not enough regulation, I think, over lease contracts in the space.
Okay.
Agreed.
Slight change of subject. What do you think that, we've kind of covered it like in drips and drabs, but what do you think is the biggest thing that brokers and lenders get wrong about valuers?
What's the biggest thing? That's a really good question, mate. I think for me, we don't want to kill deals. That's not something we want to do. It's the worst part of the job, fundamentally. Especially when you know that lender might be struggling to get that money out the door. You know, that's not a nice thing to do. We don't, being friend with a broker doesn't mean you're going to risk your career for them.
Absolutely.
It's people that say that have obviously never set up a business before, in my personal opinion. You know, you've never, some of my best lender relationships, and we're talking some of like the top 5 kind of bridge lenders in the country, have come from introductions from brokers. Mm-hmm. They're the ones that pick your fee out of the fees that come along, because maybe they just want to have a chat with someone prior to paying the fee.
Yeah.
Does it work? Does it not? That's not saying you're going to guarantee it, but it's just, do you know what, maybe saving their clients some time, which ultimately is a good reflection on the lender as well. And that's something that I think we struggle with as a firm. I think people just perceive us as these really friendly, they're nice guys, but they're friends with the brokers and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we've had that sometimes. And what people need to understand is that the reason why we create relationships with people like yourself in the valuation space, and obviously we're friends anyway, but that part is so important for us to be able to go to a valuer and say, look, there's a new opportunity here. There's a little bit of grey area where we think the build cost and GDV might be, and potentially the market value in its current state. Can you give us a bit of a steer? And we always go back to the client and say, this is where a valuer thinks it might be. However, that doesn't mean when they go out there and you've got ladies in the night standing on the corner, or you've got a council building at the end of the road that they didn't take into account, that figure could change.
Yeah. Agreed. I think from a developer's perspective, not your fees, but
My fees.
no, not. I'm not directing it at projects fees, but surveyors' fees have seemed to have gone up the last few years. Mm-hmm. So you could be like, as a developer, you could be paying 5 to 10 grand on a vow. Then maybe similar on monitoring to that, and then you've got legals. You could be 20 grand into a deal before buying it, and I think that's why people want that like reliability. It's like, okay, there's a route to pick up the phone to a human. I'm not gonna, like, you're not gonna downvalue it because the door's blue. That has happened in the past. Like the big corporates have been.
That was the gap that we saw in the market.
Yeah.
It was just born out of frustration that no valuers were approachable. And I know pretty much all valuation firms do it. They just might not necessarily be as visible as we are in the market. You know, your top 5 consultancies, I know they all have relationships with brokerages. I just think sometimes there's a disparity between what happens on, in the upper levels of the funding world to what happens on the ground.
Yeah.
And how competitive it is for lenders to get money out the door. And if they've got partners, both lenders, both valuers and lawyers, that brokers like to work with because they trust them.
Exactly.
And they trust that when they're going to be bad news, they can deliver the bad news. I'm happy to deliver the bad news myself. I hate doing it, but I'm always if I've closed the deal, I'm happy to do it. Then that ultimately improves the relationship that the broker has with the lender. The lender's perception of the market improves. The lender gets more money out the door. The lender subsequently doesn't have any bad loans, gets more funding, makes loads of money, sells lovely stuff. And I just think it's a naive perception just to think that every valuer, because they're friendly with someone, is going to do a favour.
We hear it all the time. Won't mention names of clients or surveyors, but I know Dave at this, and that relationship's usually short-lived.
Yeah.
Because they'll get pissed off at some point when they get a down val, because as a valuer, you obviously can't give your full opinion before you've gone to see the property.
I mean, there's some brokers now we just won't work with. Like, really? Yeah. I mean, like some of these quotes you used to see come through. Oh, that's a nice one. We just won't touch them because I know for a while that deal was already at 75% leverage and that GDV is optimistic. So straight away, it's going to cause us issues. I'm like, mate, I'm not going to do a deal. I don't want to work with you. And they're the ones that will actually put pressure on you to kind of push the boat. And that does happen, of course it does, but I hate that side of things. I actively pull myself away from those situations. But we're lucky that we've got a good flow of work, but I can see how other valuation firms might fall foul of that because they're desperate for the instructions, they're desperate to pick it up. But it is competitive out there. It's really competitive. And I think the ones that might be slightly more susceptible to it are maybe the ones that charge a little bit less, because obviously it's hard out there. I mean, so that's the firms are quite lucky if they can turn 10, 15% profit. So it's hard. So there's all these things come into it. And then before people cast judgment, they should try and put their feet in someone else's shoes sometimes.
So yeah, Chris, just piggybacking onto that last point then, how do you find the pressure of valuation panels and lenders? I've seen it in situations where certain valuation companies have been paused by lenders and or funding lines as well. So funding lines, lenders and valuation panels that are, obviously from the funding line being more, providing more scrutiny, but have you found yourselves being under more pressure where you've had to be even more conservative on a VAR report than maybe what you have been before?
Yep. And also as well, we're one of the newer kids on the block. So I completely understand that us as a firm have to prove ourselves to the market and have to go through a couple of cycles. It's still well and good me saying we've had no claims in 7 years, but it's not a massive cycle of transactions, so which I'm very proud of. But again, because I look like I do on tattoos up for M6, people just assume that they're going to be doing favours, which again is very naive. But ultimately, I still need to run a business. Mm-hmm. So if I know that the governance now, which is on all lenders following like the MFS stuff, etc., is going to be a lot more scrutiny on valuation, then of course we will take perhaps not an over conservative stance, but we will, because we want to. The last thing we want is our lenders to get any bad loans, and that's ultimately again going to affect their ability to get more funding in the future from their funding lines.
Yeah.
But I've had lenders before where the valuation came in way below what the applicant wanted. But do you mind just making that a little bit lower? I was like, I don't really feel comfortable doing that because that's not the valuation. I was like, yeah, we just want to lend a bit there. I was like, okay.
Or they've hit their maximum capacity with funding much.
And we're lucky we're in a position now if you don't want to do the work for a certain point, we don't have to do it. But there are also other lenders out there that are the complete opposite end of the spectrum, generally the ones with private money, who push it. Can you push it? Can you push it? And I'm like, no. I'll do what I can to, if you're in the parameters of what's acceptable. But it's so hard being a valuer at the moment.
We've worked with valuers who have, kind of going back to that commercial side, have been really keen to do business, and they built themselves up, and then when they get to that point they start like nil value and stuff constantly, and you're like, that's the complete end of the scale, and you've almost been too focused on fees, then you got to that, and then you've gone the opposite end of the scale. That's what clients get really pissed off with.
Yeah, we're trying to stay consistent. Yeah, is as long as we're always approachable, I think you can ride. If your values are more conservative, and that goes for every valuation firm, and if you're a bit more approachable, I don't think brokers mind so much, as long as you articulate why the deal hasn't worked.
Yeah.
There's nothing worse than having evidence in front of you and then just completely going against the evidence that's in front of you. That's the point. That is my personal opinion. And I know there are some valuers that do that. But I'm tight with 3 or 4 other firms, and they're all feeling the same pressure. And I just want to do my job properly, just value it for what it's worth and protect my clients. But unfortunately, you do have to play the game a little bit in terms of, how you're perceived, and the evidence that you're putting forward has to be 100% bang on. And I wouldn't wish being a value on anyone, if I'm being completely honest with you.
Great recruitment tool.
No, actually, Jamie wouldn't at all for.
So, slight left field question for you. I think I know the answer to the question, but in today's market, if you had £1 million, what are you investing in?
In property?
In property.
Probably a care home.
I thought you might say that.
A nice care home, maybe 20 to 30 beds if I can find one for that money, refurbish it. And just be a joke, because that could be more. I mean, my dads are both dead, bless them, but long dead as well. I've been dead for years. But that's could be my mum in a few years. I'd love to make a change. For me, everything I do, even with projects, about making a change, trying to improve the space. If I can make a tiny step and improve the care for someone, then who am I kidding? It's an absolute money machine. So I'll be helping my mum. Helping my mum. I make a lot of money.
Yeah.
What about you guys? What would you do?
Not development.
Yeah.
No, I'm joking. I'm a big believer in going across multiple asset streams, and then you haven't got then to suddenly pivot and suddenly offload all you've got. We've spoken about this before, about property investors coming into our business and suddenly wanting to do a 20-unit development right off the bat. And you're like, well, what's your experience? Nothing. But my mate Dave, he done a refurb last week. But we spoke about it before about having a mixture of asset types, buy to let, strong commercial assets with maybe some blue chip tenants in, commercial to resi conversions, market dependent on flats and whatever else. Obviously, you mentioned the care home stuff, the social housing. In my opinion, obviously the care home thing, I think that's a lot of work. And if you're prepared to take time out of work to be able to kind of put that together, because it's all about the team as well.
It'd be post-exit, I think.
Yeah, I was going to say, because
a bit more time.
If you're still working and you want that supplementary income from investing your money in assets, then I think it needs to be a mixture across multiple asset types.
I think that's one of the key things, isn't it? I've definitely felt this. Everyone thinks property is passive, and it's really not. I think there's some strategy like development. It's the opposite of passive, and it's a full operational machine. Even if you do one project, there's so many variables with it. Like the GDP that you predict now, exit in 2 years could be completely different. Your bill cost can be completely different. Everything changes. So I think, if you was in a full-time role, I'd probably, as in like you had a full-time job, I'd probably go commercial to avoid the renters reform stuff. And there's one strategy I want to talk about because I want to keep it for future. But one is buying commercial, good commercial assets with the opportunity to do uppers in the future. Yeah, like if you could do a 10% yield, it cash, because that's the thing that kills most development businesses is cash flow. If you can get something that you're not just hemorrhaging money on constantly, and it takes you 10 years to get the airspace planning, and then you develop that out, and or you sell it and reduce your debt. That's quite a...
Like we've got a client recently that's got commercial on the bottom with a tenants in generating income, and they're building on top.
Yeah. That's the neat smart move actually, because he's converting what was above. So you haven't got like you haven't got the
Fresh airspace.
Yeah. But I won't say who they are. There's a big commercial developer that does that really successfully. We bought some airspace from them, and I was like, "What? You're so stupid. You're not doing the resi bit." And now we've done it. I'm like, they're really smart. Yeah. So I just want to take their model. Yeah. They've literally bought something for what we bought the airspace from them on. So they've got no money in, and they've got high street presence, blue chip tenants in the ground floor. I'm like, that was so clever. With no cash left in.
Smart.
That's what I'd do.
One piece of advice on raising money for projects in this market.
Oh, good question. Well, I mean, I've only got to say one thing on this. I think building a personal brand is really important in this space, creating that authenticity and a presence that people trust and like. Ultimately, investing with someone is not just about their credibility, but also if you get on with them or not. As I think we're all aware, we've probably worked with people in the past that may have had the credibility at the start, but not necessarily people we want to work with. So grow your brand, use stuff like LinkedIn. Where else are you going to get access to? Because I think everyone just might type in investor, but generally people in high-powered jobs will have disposable cash.
Yeah.
You're stupid not to use that. Exactly.
That's a really good point, isn't it? Everyone thinks investors are gold platers, but actually they're just normal people.
Baby boomers, mate. These baby boomers that are, remortgaging their house they bought in Cobham for 100 grand back in 1992, remortgaging it for 3 million quid or whatever. Like,
Exactly to do with it.
those people, yes, that'd be my tip.
What's the most ridiculous thing you've ever seen as a valuer at a property, on a site? What's the most ridiculous thing you've ever seen?
Well, two answers to this one. This happened yesterday, actually. It wasn't me, it was one of my surveyors. So I was in the flat, the police knocked on the door and they arrested the geese.
No. Do we know why?
No idea. It looked a bit, but I think it's drugs related.
Who was what he was living in there?
Yeah. Oh, we've also seen, I've seen my fair share of human torso. Some better than others. But
what? People going at it? Or
No, unfortunately not. But I have seen bits of things.
Okay, people just walking around naked.
Yeah,
Is
yeah,
that
stuff
the door?
like that. Yeah, sleeping naked, all that stuff.
On purpose for you.
I think it's a thing. I think, and then the weirdest one I have seen though is quite early on in my career. I walked into a flat, and the woman was like, "I don't know if you want to go in there." I was like, "Oh, why not?" She's like, "Oh, she passed away this morning," and I was like, "Do you not just cancel the inspection?" I said, "Oh, she's really old though. Like, she's gonna go any day." Like,
So then this person was deceased, still in the property.
yeah, like probably still warm, but yeah.
Oh my God.
That as well. She was really old, bless her. But I had to go in there but I had to take measurements.
I mean, was there a blanket over or?
Yeah, but there was some hair coming out the end.
Interesting. Oh, interesting.
Wonderful. But there you go. Sorry, put that out.
On that note, thank you for joining us for another edition of Financing Foundations. Thank you for joining us today, Mr. Horton, Channel 5 superstar.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you very much.